Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Diverse Talk Matters.
To talk about different things around diversity, equity, inclusion, talk about things that people may find challenges with, so we hope you find them really useful. Some are around people's different lived experiences, some really challenging conversation, things that sometimes we don't need to talk about. But we really hope you enjoy the range of topics that we are introducing to you or bringing to you, to your homes, to your house, to your workplaces.
We hope you enjoy. Hi everyone, my name's Tash. I'm the founder director of Diverse Matters. Welcome to this episode of Diverse Talk Matters, where we're talking all things family inclusion. And I've got my wonderful guest here, Jane. Jane is from an organisation called Working Families. Do you want to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what Working Family does, anything else, your pre-work before Working Families, Jane?
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Tash. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. So thanks very much for inviting me. And as you said, I'm Jane, and I am the Chief Exec here at Working Families. Our mission is to remove the barriers that working parents and carers face in the workplace. So pretty big mission. We look at it from a systems change perspective. So we provide a free legal advice line to working parents and carers to help them, to empower them to understand and use their workplace rights. And really important to know that everybody who calls us wants to keep their jobs. Mm-hmm. So it's about us supporting them to understand how they can have that human-to-human conversation with their boss or their line manager or their employer. And I'm delighted to say that our team are brilliant and they get really good results for people, which is fantastic. Then the next thing that we do is we work with employers to help them create, build and sustain flexible and family-friendly workplaces. Mm-hmm. And we also say flexible because it's not just about people with family, it's also about people with self-care responsibilities. So for example, if you've got a physical illness or a mental health issue and actually you need to manage that in a particular way, working flexibly can be really helpful with that. And frankly, if you have an obsession with the gym and you want to go to the gym in the middle of a Thursday afternoon, then actually it'd be great if your employer could give you a bit of flexibility around that. So we do those two things. And then the third thing that we do is we look at those two views, what is not working in the workplace, which we hear from the parents and carers who contact us, and what we know is possible in the workplace because of the brilliant employers that we work with. And we take those two views and we push for practical, positive policy change. So that's what Working Families does. And I just have the best team ever. They're just amazing. We're small, so there are 26 of us all together, but everybody is passionate about this area. Mm-hmm. It's the joy of working for a charity, is that you do get that passion because you have that purpose as an organisation. So I moved into working with charities in around, where are we now? Probably nearly 20 years ago now. Before that, I'd worked private organisations and broadly around change management. Ah. But I really I started volunteering for Samaritans, the charity, and I loved it. And I thought, oh wow, wouldn't it be amazing if I could do this all the time? Yeah. So then I started working so I've had jobs with London Wildlife Trust first, then Samaritans, then SANS, the stillbirth charity, and then Breast Cancer Haven, obviously a breast cancer charity, and now with Working Families.
Brilliant. I've got so many questions just from that first thing that you said. I was like, so the legal advice line is brilliant, which I wasn't aware of, because I think a lot of people, as soon as they hear that, they think, oh my gosh, because there's so many people who are in organisations, don't know who to go to, don't know if they can talk to somebody, particularly if it's a free helpline. So when's it available? If you tell us when it's open and the details, and then, gosh, if we could let people know about that, it'd be brilliant.
The most important thing is that we have over 200 pages of information on our website.
Brilliant.
Which very often will actually give you all of the information that you need. Mm-hmm. And we have more than 1 million unique visitors to those pages every year. Mm-hmm. So it clearly is needed. Mm-hmm. Then our helpline is open every day during term time between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Every now and again it has to be closed illness or staff training, all of the kind of normal reasons. And you can also email us. So there's a form on our website, and the more information we get about the particular issue that you are having, the quicker we can get back to you. Brilliant. So that is what it, and as you say, sorry, I got a little bit tongue-tied there. As you say, people just don't know it, know it exists. And so we constantly have parents saying to us, oh, I wish I'd known about you 5 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. Because I said a lot of people, whether it's parent, caring or otherwise, which we'll also talk about, people don't feel they're rocking the boat. People will think, can I do this? It's going to impact, they might want to get rid of me. Don't get me wrong, there's lots of really good employers out there who really are inclusive. I was talking to a friend this morning and she was saying she'd put in a flexible working arrangement, got agreed within a week, no problem. So there's lots of good people out there, but
exactly,
it is that advice. And I think the fact that you've got loads of information on your website, so please everybody, do have a look, please, at Working Families, because there is just a whole wealth of information there to support you. The other thing I would pick up, which I thought, oh yes, interesting, is when you talked about, even if you've got no family and you like the gym being whatever, and I think as a society, as an employees, we've all got much more interested in work-life balance, being, looking after ourselves, particularly after COVID, Sarah mentioned that C word, but...
Yes, I'm traumatised by it.
I know, I tell you. And I think that's really good because I remember, I'm a parent now, but I remember when I wasn't a parent and I was a manager for many years and managed teams. And I always try to be fair because some people think if you haven't got a child doesn't mean you shouldn't be supported. And sometimes there's this thing about, I haven't got a child, what about me? Have you found that in your work as well? And I think it's good that you are doing that because, again, people wouldn't necessarily know that you're actually supporting others that haven't got a family, for example.
Yep. So in terms of what's legally available to people who don't have children or aren't caring for an adult, there's not that enormous amount available, except of course that we have been hugely instrumental in, we worked with Yasmin Qureshi MP on the new flexible working legislation. So now it is reason neutral, so you don't have to say you don't have to tell your employer why you want that flexible working request. You can just put that flexible working request in. Brilliant. And for many, as you say, for many of the employers that we work with, their flexibility is available to everybody because they want, their focus is on getting the business to be, frankly, as profitable as it can be. Exactly. And in order for that to happen, you've got to look after your people because they're the ones who are going to be delivering that work for you. So we don't get calls or emails from people who don't have some kind of caring responsibility. But we absolutely know that flexible working, increasingly these days, is something that the younger generation are very interested in doing. And it's incredibly useful both at the start of your career and at the end of your career. Because most people don't actually want to stop working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, just finish one day and that's it. And for many of people, of course, with the cost of living crisis, they simply can't afford to retire. But they don't necessarily want to work full time, or they don't necessarily want to be sitting on a tube every morning, desperately trying to get into work, and it takes them an hour. If they did it a little bit later, it could take them 20 minutes. So those are the kinds of things that we are always interested in, is how can flexible working support everybody? Brilliant. But of course, our primary concern as a charity is going to be those parents and carers. Lovely. And you talked about flexible working, which is brilliant because it should be open to everybody. It should be a case of it's about business need, not have you got what are your responsibilities at home. So that's really good. And I know that I saw on your website you've got about time to talk flexible working, the logo. And when I used to work for an organisation, we were a part of that. Do you want to tell people a little bit about that? Because whether you're an employer, you can sign up, or whether you're an employee, you can tell your employer. Exactly. Love that. Love a bit of bossiness. We worked, so a number of years ago, Department of Business and Trade put together something called the Flexible Working Task Force. And they were interested in understanding how flexibility could be introduced at organisations. And they wanted to get a sense from both the really good guys who are very interested in doing this, what made it easy for them to implement it, and also from some of the people who were finding it much more difficult to implement. Because quite often, as you say, employers aren't necessarily bad people.
Yeah.
Of course, there are some of those out there.
Yeah.
But many of them is just a little bit too frightening to
Yeah.
think, how am I going to do this? And how can I be fair to everybody? And then say, in terms of how can I be fair to everybody, I'm just going to refuse all flexible working requests, because then I don't have to decide who
Yeah.
deserves it and who doesn't, or how I can work it out and how I can't. So one of the things that we did with government is we provided them with our Happy to Talk flexible working logo. And the whole idea of the logo is that you put this in all of your recruitment ads. So it lets people who are applying for a role to know that you are very happy to have a conversation with them about how they might be able to work flexibly. And it also, at that point, you can then say, look, that's not possible. So, for example, you want to be a brain surgeon, I'm afraid you can't work from home.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
That bit of flexible working isn't available. But you want to start at 10, that's absolutely fine. You want to only come into the hospital 3 days a week, that's great. We can only schedule operations during those 3 days a week. So there are all kinds of things. And it also signals then to the employee, don't be frightened about asking, how can I do this job flexibly? One of the organisations that we worked with in the past who graduated from our employer membership scheme is Zurich Insurance.
Okay.
They now advertise every single one of their jobs. Within the job title, it says Chief Exec, flexible, part-time, job share.
Brilliant.
And what they've found is they've had an increase in the number of both men and women who are applying. They've had a huge increase in the number of men working part-time. They've had a significant increase in the number of senior women. And they've found that some of their really difficult jobs had much better response from the market. Because obviously within insurance there are some really kind of niche roles that you need a specific set of skills for. And for them it's just been such a success, and it's improved engagement throughout the entire organisation.
And that's what we always talk when we talk to organisations. We say, if you want to get the best talent, you want to get people with the skills and abilities, what do you need to be doing? And people often used to see flexible working as we can't allow that. But it shows, if somebody gives you flexible working, you're going to be more engaged, you're going to be loyal. When the work hits the fan, you're going to get on with the work, if you've been supported. We also talk about sometimes in training and around multi-generational working, the fact that if you're older, we're all sadly going to be working a lot longer. The pension age, we don't have a pension age to retire, but in terms of when we're getting our pensions, it gets farther and further away, doesn't it? So the fact that a lot of people will be wanting to work longer, but maybe part-time. And I always encourage that with employers, because sometimes they go, well, no, would you rather not keep the people? And the same for the younger people, if they want to work part-time or flexible hours. So I think it's good to see this, because historically I saw a bit of probably the last year or two is not so bad, but prior to that you didn't see so many people with job share flexible work, and I'm glad to see it back, that you have got people, because it's something that's going to bring people, not prevent people from coming to. And like those logos, people sometimes say, oh, why have you got a logo? But it gives a good message. People know what they're getting, and they know that they can get support. And it was really also lovely to hear that you have men as well, a lot more men in the organisation who were then going part-time, because it's not one gender, one sex in terms of who's going to do that. So any employers out there, do this. But also what I would say is, make sure you've got the process in place, because I think sometimes you've alluded to say that people will not have the right procedures. People will get, I'm a flexible working, and sometimes we're like, how do we decide this? It's got to be a real clear, straight process, so it's clear for everybody. And I think sometimes there's a fear on both sides. As long as everybody knows exactly how the policy and process work, it's fair, there's no bias, it's done in a structured way, and how decisions are made, job done.
Yeah, absolutely. We know how difficult it can be for line managers. The Chartered Management Institute always say that more than 80% of line managers have never had any training in how to manage people.
Oh gosh, yeah.
we give line managers promotions and go, there we go, there's a team for you to manage. Aren't you lucky? But we don't actually give them any support. So the more of that, the more kind of support and structure can be built in, the better. We at Working Families talk about 4 things that are critical to get to embedding flexible working. You've got to have the right culture within the organisation. You've got to have senior leadership supporting you, and hopefully people who are going to walk the walk and talk the talk. You have to have good quality job design. So jobs need to be designed so they can be done in the hours of work that are being advertised for them. Because we all know that actually it's the output at the end of the day that is the most important thing. But if you can't get to that output because that role hasn't been allocated enough hours, then that puts everybody in such a difficult position. So job design is crucial. And then, of course, there's line manager training. So supporting line managers to understand how they can agree a flexible working request. And things like, how about a trial period? If you're really not sure, give it a go, see if it's going to work.
Definitely.
And looking at the team and understanding how each job can or cannot be done in a flexible way. I mentioned earlier, you're a brain surgeon, you can't actually do that job from home, or not yet anyway.
Yeah.
So Working Families, we always say that not every job can be flexible in the same way, but there will be some flexibility in every job.
Definitely.
Staggered starts, team rostering, job shares, part-time, working from home, all of those kinds of things can be done in different ways in different jobs. But it's that real understanding of that job design. Where does this job need to be done from? How, when does it need to be done? And who does it need to be done with?
Yeah. Honestly, Jane, it's like I'm talking to myself. All those things you say, I'm like, yeah, that's what we tell people. Because the whole thing about so many managers who are lovely people, but they've got the perfect, they might be great at their skill in terms of, but they have not, I am astonished with the amount of people who haven't done manager training. And when we do, whether it's consultancy or training, and people ask us questions, and I think, wow, I'm glad you're asking to get the advice. But if you'd have had training in the first place to be I think every manager should have some level of training because whether it's managing different, managing diverse teams, absolutely. And I was there ferociously nodding, going, tell me about it, Jane, tell me about it. Also, I think having things like job share, all that sort of stuff, it makes you more resilient as an organisation because you've got, and again, that's what some people don't see. There's so many benefits of flexible working, but like again, we'd love everybody in the world to buy on into that, and I hope we'll eventually. But in terms of resilience, if you've got a job share, you might have somebody else who can change or add a little bit on if somebody else is off or unwell. It really does support with that. So yeah, all the things you were saying, I was like, absolutely so true. So a lot of the work you do about our focus on employers. Tell us a little bit more. You've told us a bit. Anything else you want to tell us about the work you do with employers? I know you do a index. Let's tell us a little about how employers, one, can get involved and join the membership, and a little bit more what you haven't told me about what other support you can offer, because I think so many employers could benefit so much.
So if everybody wants to go to our website, which is www.workingfamilies.org.uk, we have different sections of our website, one for advice for working parents and carers, and then a second one on our employer membership. The vast majority of our employer members, we have around 160 employer members. The vast majority of them are employers with more than 250 employees, but that doesn't mean that they are all 250 employees. So we've also got some employer members who are smaller than that. On our website, we also have quite a lot of free material available for small employers, those people who are employing less than 100, less than 50 people, because obviously we understand that the price we charge our large organisations isn't affordable for them. So we've got all of that material on our website. The other thing that we're doing at the moment, which is we're hugely excited by, we are the secretariat for the all-party parliamentary group on flexible and family-friendly working. And that's chaired by Tulip Sadiq and Maria Miller, because you have to have, your chairs are co-chairs and they come from the different parties. And so that is going to be a hugely exciting project for us.
Brilliant.
We also have an academic advisory board because we want to understand from research what actually is happening. How can these things work? Can we test that and see? So every year we do something called the Working Families Index, where we go out and we ask working families what's happening for them. And this last year in 2023, with the cost of living crisis, we did a spotlight on lower income families.
Okay.
And the good news about the report was that when push comes to shove, families are prioritising the care of their children above anything else, which of course is wonderful news. But what that means is many of those families are being pushed further into poverty or into debt because they can't afford formal childcare. We will hear calls from people saying, childcare costs £11.50 where I come from, but I'm being paid £9.50 an hour. I can't work more hours because actually it's just not affordable for me. And what we found was that there isn't enough flexible working out there for parents and carers. And that is a real focus for us. And so we're hoping that with all of the work that we're doing, the policy work, the all-party parliamentary group, and our working with employers and focusing also on small employers, means that we will be opening up all of those flexible working options so families can thrive, not just get by, but thrive.
Brilliant.
And the other thing, so one last thing to say is on our helpline, we also employed a benefits advisor during COVID, and she can help families understand what they are entitled to. And last year, the year before, in 2022-23, she helped families get an extra £100,000 in benefits that they were due. And of course, that just makes such a difference in terms of everybody's budgeting ability.
Definitely. And also, some people don't know if they're on the right benefits, if it's wrong. And I think we're all, sometimes you feel like you need, I don't know, to work it all out in terms of what you need. And it's not always made easy for people. If you could have that benefit, that's brilliant that you had that during COVID. And in terms of like parents and carers, say for example with parents, I know that we will work with organisations, say to them things like, have you got a good policy on whether it's maternity, paternity, even things like miscarriage, baby loss, all sorts of. Do you think, what sort of areas have you helped in terms of supporting parental in employers? Anything that's your top? What do you get more queries about, apart from flexible working, anything else?
Yeah, so because of course we're working parents and carers, one of the things that we do is we offer, as part of your employer membership, we can look at policies for you.
Brilliant.
And we look at policies from a best practice perspective. So there is a legal minimum that you need to provide, but we're always interested in supporting organisations to go for best practice. So we would say that the kind of gold standard for large employers is equalising parental leave. So that's across how you get your baby, whether you have whether your baby's born, whether you adopt, if you're fostering, if you're a kinship carer, all of those kinds of things to think about. Then equalised parental leave, because the only way that we are going to change the motherhood penalty is actually if dads also parent. And one of our brilliant ambassadors is a chap called Elliot Ray. And Elliot
I know of Elliot. Yes.
Yeah, he's brilliant. And he talks about, as a dad, parenting out loud, saying, I'm doing the school run.
Yes.
So that everybody is aware that actually dads also have all of those responsibilities and want those responsibilities. So equalising parental leave for us is really important. Where possible, we would always encourage organisations to pay 90% or 100% of salary wherever possible when people are taking leave, particularly because in the UK, dads only get 2 weeks of paternity leave, and it's paid at £178 a week. That is nowhere near the average wage in the UK, let alone the national minimum wage or the real living wage. So for us, it's really important that where possible, organisations encourage dads to take that leave, and if they can possibly afford it, enhance that provision. We've also worked with Adoption UK and Kinship and with the Fostering Network to understand, because they will have significant experience in those
Definitely.
areas. And also Gingerbread, the single parent charity.
Yes, we
To
work
understand, what are the factors that should go into a best practice policy when it's around parents and carers.
Yeah.
And of course, Carers UK this year managed to get through, and it's coming in very soon, 5 days worth of unpaid leave that you're now entitled to as a carer, which is
brilliant.
absolutely brilliant. It would be even better if it was paid, but
Yeah.
at least as a carer, you can now actually take time if there's a breakdown in care,
Yeah.
which is vital. If you're looking after somebody who needs to go to hospital or a doctor's appointment, mostly that's during working hours. So all of those kinds of things. The other thing that we provide employers with is what we call our benchmark. So every year they complete a series of questions around what their policies, practices and the evidence within their organisation around everything to do with flexible working and family-friendly working. Many organisations use that benchmark opportunity as a chance to understand where they are compared with other organisations in their sector and other organisations within the family-friendly workplace areas. And we will then give them a review once they've completed that benchmark. The relationship managers will sit down with them and say, you're doing brilliantly here, not so well there in comparison with other organisations. And quite often organisations can then use that as an opportunity to actually put a plan in place for these, therefore, the things that we're going to focus on. One of my favourite stories is of one of our employer members who came to us because they'd got a new HR director, and the CEO and the HR director really wanted to work hard to make the organisation more family friendly. They acknowledged that this was not an area that they were very skilled at. And so they came and did the benchmark the first year, and they did genuinely get the worst scores we've ever seen.
Yes. Oh dear.
But within 10 years, they were one of our best employers.
Brilliant.
They were within our top 10.
Yeah.
Because every year they took the learning from the year before and they improved things. And they had the culture. They obviously did the line manager training. They looked at job design, and they had senior leadership involvement.
Brilliant. And I think this is why, and I say this to people all the time, it's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to get a change in culture overnight. You're not going to get people buying in and more people understanding the need for this. So I think that's really good to tell a realistic story. Because again, sometimes we'll work with somebody, we'll go, these are the actions that really help you move forward. And I always say to people, this is plenty of years' work, what we're telling you. It's not going to be, it's going to happen in a year. It's going to be a gradual change. And as you do more and more people come on board, more people understand it. And it's so much better. So I'm glad you saw the trajectory there from, naught to brilliant to gold star in that time, because it's not going to happen overnight at all. And like we say, anybody who's involved in any sort of inclusion, the culture is the massive thing. If you've not got a good culture, or you're not working toward change your culture, don't bother. You have to have that there, or it's not going to work. And again, loads of things you said, I was like, as you were talking then. And in terms of what I have seen is positive. The fact that policies are moving to develop and things like surrogacy in terms of the adoption, the foster and the IVF. Like you said, any type of becoming a parent, no matter what it is, and giving both parents, whether they're opposite sex, same sex as well, because also recognition for LGBT plus families where often they may think I come forward. Again, if a culture's not right, would they say to somebody, I'm going through this process as well? So it's about the whole inclusion, but also we will say to people, if you've got anything there about miscarriage, baby loss, all those sort of things, people may not. And I think just make sure when you're looking at any policy, of course you go to working families, but you have the whole plethora of people, because the world is a place now where it's not just one type of family and one type of work, having a child or whether it is. So all that's really important. And it was brilliant news. I loved hearing about the Carers UK 5 days unpaid leave. Yeah, we'd like it to be. But the fact of recognition, so many carers will be doing all and above and coming into work and getting on with it, and you don't even know they're a carer They are
Yep.
literally like just, so the fact, the recognition of carers is so important. And I think, like we used to say to organisations, what support have you got for carers? Like you'd have an adjustment for somebody who's maybe disabled, what adjustment are you putting in place for people who are carers?
Yeah, yeah. We even had one of our team, a relationship manager, came to work for us, and it was only when he was working for us that he realised that he was a carer for his mother. Because he hadn't actually realised, he just thought he was being a good son.
Yes.
But his mother really wasn't very well and needed quite a lot of extensive support. And it was only at that point that he went, oh, yeah, I'm a working carer.
Yeah.
And he was also a working parent.
Yes.
But it's really interesting. So often people don't recognise everything that they're doing. I think most people really do need to give themselves a pat on the back for
Yeah,
one, getting
definitely.
out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
All of the caring responsibilities that adults take on. Actually, it's what makes us as a society. And it's so important to recognise that we're all getting older. We're all going
Yeah.
to need some help from someone at some point.
Yeah. We're all working longer, living longer. So, yeah, and I think it's so true, because for a lot of families, you just do. You're just doing it. You're not thinking,
Yep.
the figures we have for carers, add more to that, because like I said, a lot of people are not recognising that they're carers, and also it's not always older people that are carers. You have
Yeah.
young carers, and I think people think you've got to be a certain age that you're a carer. It could be at any age, from
Yeah.
children
Yep.
to 100. So
Yeah.
again, it's recognition of that. Just because you've got a young person starting for you don't make that assumption. And again, it's about how do people introduce people to the organization. Brilliant stuff you said about making people know when they start, this flexible working, but also what information are we asking people when they start to make sure we put support in place. So we always say to people, ask them, is there anything we need to know to support you? Are there any barriers that need removing? Because again, they don't always, people have to see it to believe it, don't they? The whole culture of this, and some people will wait. They're like, I'm not saying anything yet. I'm going to wait, and I'll wait then. And when I know it's safe to say, then I'll tell you I'm a carer. Then I'll tell you I'm going to have a child. The amount of people who have not told people they're having a child because they don't know what's going to happen afterwards. They're waiting to the last possible moment. So again, it's all those things that organisations and employers need to be thinking about.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got a pregnancy and maternity calendar which helps parents understand from their employment perspective what they need to be doing when.
Brilliant.
So what's the last time that you can possibly tell your employer? Little
Brilliant.
things like, it's not little, but if you're in a workplace where you need some adjustments, your employer has to do a health and safety assessment with you. So they're all, if you're sick as a result of your pregnancy, that doesn't go onto your sick record.
Mm-hmm.
All of those kinds of things are in our pregnancy and maternity calendar, and it'll encourage you, if keeping in touch days are available, how you might want to use them with your employer.
Yeah.
So all of the things that will help you get back into work if that's what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And frankly, most people need to work.
Yeah.
There are very few people who can afford not to work.
Yeah, exactly. No, definitely said something that's gone in my head then. Oh, about the toolkit, and when you said you'd tell people about when they can leave, when the last minute they can tell people, things like that. And I think that is so important, because people are really sometimes unsure of what to do, when to when to have that. What do you think the biggest challenges are for organisations? Say if somebody's that one you said that were 10 years and they were like, I haven't done anything. What do you think of the challenges are for organisations who haven't started? And then what sort of advice would you give them? First three things to start first. So what challenges do you find for people who are literally, they haven't started a thing yet?
So I think, would say to them, firstly, have a look at job design and line management training. And that assumes that you've got that senior leadership buy-in at the top, because you're not going to get those through the whole organisation if you don't have that buy-in. Mm-hmm. And that will, over time, change culture. So for us, it's really about that job design piece and the line manager training, so that you're getting the implementation of whatever your policy is fairly across the entire organisation.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it is that job design piece, because I hear so often organisations feeling that they want to make it fair for everybody. And fair for everybody is great, but actually, for some people, there will be parts of their job that cannot be done in a particular way.
Yeah.
And if we're completely honest about that, and as upfront about that as we can possibly be, then everybody will understand, okay, I do need to be in the office on a Tuesday between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. because that's when there's a team meeting and we're doing collaboration, or whatever it happens to be. If you are doing shift work, having an understanding of actually when you're going to be guaranteed those hours, so that as a parent you can put in place behind the scenes all of the childcare that you need. So for employers, I would say look first at job design, get your line managers trained. That assumes you've got that senior leadership buy-in, and then work on your culture.
Definitely. And you'll get there. This is saying as well, you'll get there as well.
Get there.
For those people who think, oh, I don't really know, I'm not really sure, don't hold back, fight the fear and do it anyway, because it will make you for a better, happier workforce. You'll keep all those brilliant people. You'll see people thrive because they'll, like we said earlier, they'll see they're supported. Don't anybody listen to this think it's a taking, because some people think, oh, we have to say yes to everything. But like you've already highlighted, sometimes it can't work, but there's got to be a very good reason for it. So it's about that fair process. Brilliant. We've talked about the Happy to Talk Flexible Working. You told us about the index. Talk to me about, I saw on your website as well, National Work Life Week.
Yes, so National Work Life Week is a week where we really campaign around making that week really about flexible working. How can we all support one another across all kinds of organisations, across all kinds of ages, across all kinds of responsibilities? And we will work with a lot of different employers. There'll be lots of social posts going out. And we really want to try to encourage employers to just start, as you said, feel the fear, do it anyway. Just start with one thing. What's the one thing that you could do that would make your organisation more family friendly? Because we all have families, whether it's you and your goldfish or you and your blended extended family. We all have families. So and that is an opportunity to highlight that issue and also to encourage employers to just make one change. And it gives us the opportunity to highlight the brilliant employers who have gone through that journey and are doing all of those amazing things, and the benefits that it is bringing them in terms of retention, engagement, attraction of talent.
It's nothing but good, and I think this is why people like yourselves, what we do, it's the fact that if you embed family inclusion, whether it's, we look at all the other areas of inclusion, it is going to make you better. People still see it's an add-on. They're negative about it, about wokery, which I really can't stand that term. Being woke is a good thing. Look it up. That's what I'd love to get out of this. That people go, look, you are just going to be a better employee if you do this. Anything.
And there's lots and lots of research by many organisations, including McKinsey, and there is the business case on our website. It is good for the business.
Exactly.
You want to be a good employer because you want to get the right people working for you. But actually, it also helps to become more profitable.
Exactly, 100%. And you mentioned briefly, I think, and just in case I've missed anything about it, the business case toolkit, just because you mentioned the business case. And McKinsey have actually got a new one out. They've done some more recent research. They've done it for years. So do look at McKinsey if you want to know about the evidence return, whether return on investment, whatever you call it, you may want to call it. Talk us a little bit more about the business case toolkit. Anything else to add or tell us about it?
It's on our website. Have a look at it. It'll give you all of the reasons why flexible working and including families is a good thing for your business. So there's really not much more to say than that.
And the thing is, Jane, you're giving people information. It's all there. What more could people ask for? It is there to help them, and that's really brilliant. Anything else you want to add about anything else, Jane? Just anything, because it's been brilliant to talk to you, and I think hopefully people have got those key issues. Hopefully they can look on your website, get to know more about working families. Anything else you'd like to say? I don't like anybody going away and they haven't said anything you want to say.
Look, I'll finish just with a personal story. The reason that I am so passionate about flexible working is that my boss, when I was in my early 20s, and I lived an hour away from work, but 10 minutes away from the hospital, my dad was very ill and he was in hospital, and my boss allowed me to take time every day during the workday to go and see my dad, and it transformed my relationship with my father.
Brilliant.
And I still got my job done, and I probably stayed at the job maybe a couple years longer than I should have done. But absolutely, it was the thing that transformed my relationship with my dad. And
Brilliant.
I have always been grateful for that opportunity.
And you cannot beat
from
that.
And from a business perspective and a family perspective, wow.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much, Jane. It's been absolutely brilliant. Lovely to talk to you. We may talk again, but thank you so much for your time. I've enjoyed it and I've loved it. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Tash. It's been wonderful talking to you. Thank you for your time too.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. Please do spread the word about our channel and tune in for our next episode.